So what I'm going to talk about is helping adult learners find and use their voice. A lot of what we saw today went around young learners and talked about working with teens. But specifically, there's a lot of things that are different when we're working with adult learners that need to be kept in mind. First of all, we'll talk a little bit about some of the differences. Motivation, very different between young learners and adult learners. Whereas adults are self-directed learners. They know coming into class what they want. Where younger learners are adult dependent. They really depend on the teacher to give them the information and to give them guidance on their learning. And adults often challenge new information where younger learners just accept it because we are the teacher. Now, normally adults come to class with a clear purpose in mind, and it could be for their career, it could be for life in general, for traveling, for study. And this is a major contrast with the motivation between younger learners who normally are coming to class because they have no choice. They're forced to come. So adult learners usually have a higher level of motivation. They're more intrinsic learners than younger learners. And the huge difference that you have is that adult learners are paying for the class, so they want to see value for their money. And what do adult learners bring, though? They bring a lot of anxiety. And they're usually much more nervous than young learners are, because usually young learners, they could be shy or they could be afraid of speaking, but normally they're not afraid of learning, and they're willing to try just about anything. Whereas adults usually feel anxious because they're not the typical age group of a learner, especially for language or to learn something new. And there could be a lot of apprehension and uncomfortable feelings. And this has a different effect. Not knowing information for a younger learner, they can just say, I don't know. But an adult actually can feel inferior or stupid because they don't know information. And it might be part of culture, but in a lot of cultures that I've seen, adults are less willing to speak up and they're afraid of making mistakes much more than younger people because they don't want to appear like they don't know anything. So they could be feeling scared, embarrassed, and unsure. And a lot of times they're hesitant to admit that they don't know something. So, next one, expectations. Now, young learners come into class and basically they're thinking about what they have to put into the class, which is basically they know they're going to take tests, they know they're going to do homework, they know they're going to have projects to do, and they're going to be bored in a lot of cases. This is how they come to class ready. Adults come into class and they're thinking what they're going to take out of the class. And, they're looking, of course, the value, and as I said before, of getting what they paid for. But they also come with much more complex questions. For example, you never see younger learners asking about grammar rules, where you see this from adults because they're looking for more specific information. And they usually have a clear vision of what they think that they need. So their expectations tend to be much higher. And usually adult learners are thinking, is learning achievable? Where young learners really don't think about this too much. And they need to be more involved so they can feel that they have an achievable goal, that learning English or learning any kind of language or any subject matter for that matter, they have to feel comfortable. So involving them in the planning and the evaluation is very important. I find that it's great to make the class feel like they own the class. And by giving them a choice in how they're going to learn and what they're going to learn, they feel ownership, and they feel that the goals are much more realistic. But they also need to see improvement, and they also need to have some kind of scale of how they're doing. This is one of the reasons with my adult learners, I have always done video interviews from the first day of class, and then I tend to do them every 3, 6, 9 months in 3-month intervals, because, adult learners hit that wall and say, I'm not getting anywhere, I'm not improving. And when you can show them a video of themselves 3 months ago talking, they can see tangibly how much better and how much more they've improved. Relevance is very important. Now, most of these people are studying languages either for daily life or for work expectations. So if we use these subject matters with them, we'll find that they're much more engaging for adult learners. By tying in something personal and something practical, the experience is much better because the material is much more meaningful to them. And this is why it's very important always bringing in realia. Whether you have students bring their own or you bring things that are happening in the news, that are happening at work, that are happening in life. And, adults tend to be find more impact when you have something that's relevant to them. Autonomy. Well, adults have a very limited time available for studying. They work, they usually have families, they have full and busy lives, usually more than younger learners have, and there's more responsibility. So they tend to be a little bit more independent learners. And most of them come in with these specific goals and learning for life. And what happens, though, is they don't learn as quickly as younger learners do. But they come in with this readiness to learn. And this is really a society pressure that they have, that they feel it's necessary that they learn everything right away. And again, if you give them some kind of hand in the development of their experience when they're learning, they tend to be more engaged. Now, respect. You need to respect where the adults came from. Remember, you have to build some kind of comfortable environment where they're willing to make mistakes in front of others without being embarrassed and without being shy. And this is one of the most difficult things, because you have to get them to open up and to let go. The content of lessons needs to be much more varied than dealing with younger learners, because they get very bored. Adults are usually much less energetic than younger learners, so they're very reluctant to get up and stand up and jump around and move around in the classroom. So if you're doing games and activities, maybe you should think of more like conversation-based games or activities like crossword puzzles, things where the physicality isn't there. But again, what we need to do is we need to know each individual student very well, see what their motivation is, and to get them engaged. And with that, experience. One thing, young learners bring enthusiasm and curiosity and everything else, and they're excited about learning, but adults bring experience, and we have to use that experience and make everything that we teach them meaningful and to tie into the life experience. Because the older they are, the more experience they have, the more wonderful material you have to work with. So that's basically what I feel about the difference between working with it. And oh, thank you so much, Rachel. And I made it under 10 minutes. So I'd like to thank myself for being here, and I'm sure I'll see myself soon.